This economic rent question is a tough one. What's rent? What's profit? And as we talked in class today, when do you want income and instead of profit? And these all are somewhat tricky. This question asks us what happens in the short run and long run when a local politician gets government to greatly increase the yields on farmland in one area, as an effort to help the farmers. Well, if farmers are renting out the land that they're working, these programs aren't going to have the desired effect. And the reason is that all the rent in the long run accrues to the owners of the fixed factor, and it's not the farmer's labor, it's the land. Just to see this, let's back up before this problem starts and notice what tenant farmers are making before this policy. The total revenue for these farmers is, the tenant farmers, is $40,000 a year, and they have to pay their rent, so that costs them $12,000 a year, $1,000 a month. But they also have to buy seed and other stuff, and that costs them $13,000 a year. And if you look, it's no accident. The initial starting point is where tenant farmers make exactly $15,000 a year, and this is no accident, because if they didn't make $15,000 a year, we wouldn't have an initial equilibrium, and there'd be other things going on. But if unskilled workers could either work in a factory or as tenant cotton farmers, and they're indifferent between the two, and the risk factors are the same between the two, we're gonna see incomes in the two sectors be the same. If ever one of the sectors paid a higher income, workers would leave the other sector and go to the one that pays higher. But in doing that, the supply of workers in the formerly higher pay area would increase, pay would go down, and the supply of workers in the formerly lower paid one would drop, and prices would rise in that sector. And this would happen until pay in those two sectors are equal. And this is fundamental to this chapter's lessons on the allocative function of price. Price, and in particular profits and losses, direct owners of factors in the economy to where they best should put those factors to produce the highest total surplus. And that translates into profits in at least some measure for producers. So markets are really good at that. By the way, just as an aside, the rationing function of price, that refers to the fact that the price is really good at deciding who gets to buy the good and who doesn't. Simply put, if there's a market price, everybody that values the good or service higher than that price gets to buy it. If it's a market equilibrium, everybody that values it lower than that doesn't, and so we decide who has it and who doesn't. And that's by way of an aside. Anyway, this program comes into being. So this is original case. And then this program comes into being, and for just that short time before the effects of the program are manifest, people have their leases, and instead of making $48,000 a year because of the program, they make $80,000 a year. Now their leases right out of the gate are $12,000 a year still, and the inputs that they have to buy are still $13,000. And then when we look at the difference between their revenues and their explicit costs, we're seeing that their income, they're living off that net. Their income now has gone up to $55,000. So in the very short run, the farmers do benefit. But in the long run, some of those people over there in the factory who are just as skilled as the people that are the tenant farmers, they're saying, hey, those tenant farmers, they're my high school buddy. They're the Yahoo just like I am. And they're making 55. I'm stuck over here in the factory making 15. I'm going to go talk to those landlords and say, hey, I'll pay you 12, or I'll pay you 24, increase your rent by 12,000, or I'd pay you 30,000 a year, whatever. In the long run, the people that are in the factory making less money than the tenant farmers are would offer to pay the landlords a higher rent on the land as long as as long as the tenant farmers were making any more income than the factory workers. And you see where this process has to go. In the end, the let's say all the other prices are constant. That's what's given in the problem. We'll just assume that's true. Yeah, this land is yielding 80,000 worth of product, but now the lease rate rises all the way up to 52,000. All of the rents associated with that particular farmland are captured by the landlords in the form of higher rent. And so in the end, the tenant farmers are right back to making just as much as they made in the factory. And unless you think this is a strange and unique example, there actually are a lot of agricultural programs that have changed the yield associated with one particular plot of land and not another. Just to give you a couple of examples, some ranch land in eastern Oregon, say, comes with grazing rights on federal land. Well, that means if you own that land, you've got a much better way to fatten up your cattle than does the owner of a ranch that doesn't have those grazing rights. And lo and behold, and water rights are also tied to particular pieces of farmland. And lo and behold, the prices of the farmland that have grazing rights and water rights are higher than the price of the land that doesn't. And there's been a lot of empirical work. The amount by which it's higher is pretty close to exactly what we predict based on actually the present value of all the future benefits of those rights. That's what we would predict, and that's what's confirmed. One more example, in peanuts and tobacco, the government regulates who can produce peanuts and who can produce tobacco. They've offered those producers a higher price, but they enforce limits on production, and they do it by giving rights to production solely to people who own particular plots of land. And we see, adjacent farms, one land with peanut rights in Georgia, say, might sell for, I don't know, $30,000, $40,000 an acre. Right next door, same productivity, same water, everything, but no peanut rights. We might see a plot of land sell for $1,000 or $2,000 an acre. The differences can be quite dramatic, and so this logic isn't just economic theory that we dream up to torture our undergraduate students. It is that, but it's also a way to explain what we see in the world.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.